Shall we hear about robotics as to what's happening in that area, please?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Vaidya. So I would be talking about how we should be looking at technology. You know, when we talk about these newer technologies, especially Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, cognitive computing, a lot of fear comes to our mind is where is the world heading? Is it going to be typical Hollywood kinds where machines are going to take over and humans are sort of going lower than machines? So we should actually be looking at what eventually are we trying to do through technology, and there has to be a trust relationship that has to build between machines and humans. Machines are eventually getting smarter to serve humankind. And you know, let's look at when computers were coming, when printers were coming, when manufacturing automation was happening. There was a huge fear in the sense that, you know, all the jobs are going to go away. There's going to be a crisis in terms of what people would be doing. But we've seen over last 2 decades that it has helped us much more than the initial fear we had. And you know, it would be almost impossible to think of a world now where there are no computers. It's very hard to imagine to have a world now in which, you know, things are not connected, people are not connected. So there are few disruptions definitely that would have happened, but those disruptions have resulted into a better world. You know, that was the basic premise. Based on that, you know, I wanted to sort of give one of the examples of a person I met earlier this month. He was from Serbia. He has a design background, and he was here helping us on design consulting. So on 4th day of my interaction, I noticed that he had a bulge in his stomach, and I asked him, what sort of thing is that? And he said he has a device which is connected to a centralized system which monitors his blood sugar level. And he wears it 24 hours even while he's sleeping. So depending on what kind of food he takes, the insulin is injected depending on the requirements. And this is how we have to look at technology, how it is fusing. And most interesting part is, a day before, I was explaining him what is artificial intelligence. So, you know, the technology has to just fuse into our lives without us knowing that, you know, this is coming as an artificial intelligence product to us. So that's one aspect of us. You know, we call this disruption, but let us also look at it from the evolution perspective. It has to evolve. You know, we will see a couple of years, I don't know, couple of years, or it's going to be a decade, but then driverless cars are going to come around. And the big question is, what would driver do? And the straight answer would be they would be doing something intelligent. They would probably be sitting at the back of the car and probably would be running another enterprise, which would be, you know, which is what humans are designed for, you know, doing some thinking and you know, contributing into a better world. So that's how we should be looking at technology. And you know, these algorithms, decision makings, they are not going to happen immediately. It's a pretty much a baby step. It's a progressive adoption of technology, and the trust relationship is also, it is pretty much the way two humans starts to trust each other. We would start to trust machines slowly. So, you know, initially the machines would start giving us some input. We would choose to take their advice or reject their advice. Slowly we would realize that machines are able to you know, give us better decision making because they are more informed. They have real-time information coming in from different sources, and a trust relationship would build. So it's going to be a process where machines, we would start trusting machines, and machines are definitely going to be creating a different, I would say, different opportunities. There are some some jobs, I would say, is going to get disrupted, but then there are different opportunities going to come up. Yeah, that's how I look. We should be looking at technology adoption, and also from the perspective, Mr. Ranjan said that we still have a lot of people who are lagging behind in adopting this technology. But if we look from competitive standpoint, we have to enable our SMEs so that they are part of technology, and we are actually progressive in the world. If we have to be progressive, we have to be innovative. The technology adoption has to come up. It has to come up. Otherwise, someday things would happen that a competitor with a technology advantage would take over. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a nice wording coming from a person who is handling the robotics, and trust was a special thing that he brought up. Let's hear from Dr. Valavalkar, his views, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk more about the transformation which is happening on the energy sector, both on the grid side as well as on the transportation side, and how it is going to be a disruptor, but at the same time it is going to create opportunities for all of us right here. So the way traditionally when you talk about electricity, the grid has been seen, everyone usually says that, oh, with electricity grid everything is great, only problem is energy cannot be stored. So you have to generate the electricity at the time when it is getting consumed, and you have to build the entire grid where you are transmitting all that energy right at the time when it is getting generated and when it is consumed. Now this is something which is getting transformed completely. If you see something like what has happened already on the computers, where for example you have gone from smaller computers to mainframes and then moving back to the distributed computing. Something similar transition is happening with the electricity sector, where we started sort of going for larger and larger central power generating stations with coal or natural gas as thermal plant units, building extra high voltage transmission lines. But now as more and more distributed energy technologies, particularly solar or wind, is being made available at a much more economic place, the way the system operators are looking at planning the grid is changing. Now, one of the transitioning difficulties is that as compared to the thermal power plants, which are completely dispatchable, where you can control when and how much energy you want to generate from those plants, when you are using renewable resources, you have to be dependent on the nature. So obviously sun is going to be shining for 8 hours during the day. So if you are generating solar energy, whatever amount of capacity of solar parks you will build, you are going to generate that electricity only during that in the morning from 9 AM to maybe evening 5 PM. So you have to again consume that electricity either only during those hours, or if you have to maintain your lifestyle, if you have to maintain your 24/7 operations for the commercial or industrial customers, then you need to store that electricity and use that. And traditionally that has been a bottleneck, but in last 10 years there has been amazing progress happening on the technological front, where earlier people used to think about energy storage only in terms of either large scale pumped hydro or lead acid batteries, which are very common in India. But in last 10 years there are a number of technologies which have come up, right from thermal storage, mechanical storage such as flywheels, to electrochemical storage, newer technologies like lithium-ion batteries, which is completely transforming this sector. The cost of most of these technologies are coming down by factor of 80 to 90% within last 1 decade, and that is enabling lot more applications where these technologies are getting used. Now, how this creates an opportunity? So one example apart from the grid is obviously transportation. We are hearing about the whole e-mobility initiatives and looking at completely possibly transforming towards a 100% EV scenario within next 10, 15 or maybe maximum 20-year timeline. The question is not if we are going to move towards that, the only question is when. And that also, it's not a big window in terms of is it going to happen in 10 or 30 years, but it is question of happening within next 5 to 10 years. And that's where there are lots of opportunities where right now globally new manufacturing capacity is getting built. And right now, India has a window of opportunity for next maybe 2 years or 3 years, where India can actually become part of the global supply chain in this area. And that's where me as a executive director for India Energy Storage Alliance, we have set a vision that this time in the transition towards this energy storage, microgrids and electric vehicles, we are not going to be satisfied by India just being a largest marketplace for these technologies, but we want India to be also by 2022 a global hub for R&D as well as manufacturing of these technologies. And we think there are great opportunities. Already there are more than 50 Indian scientists who are part of leading storage companies around the world, right from Samsung to LG to other companies. Indian scientists have been spearheading development of latest generation technologies in these global giants. And in fact, there are lots of opportunities for new startups to come into this ecosystem and start supplying disruptive solutions. So we again as the India Energy Storage Alliance are working very closely with Indian government, with Skill Development Department, with Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, with Niti Aayog, and try to sort of work with the Indian companies. We have also partnered with IEMA, Indian Electrical and Electronic Manufacturing Association, where we are educating Indian manufacturing companies on how even with the current manufacturing, with the various components which are being manufactured, these companies can become part of the global supply chain. At the same time, we are dealing with number of leading technology companies and helping them forge partnerships for setting up even a gigafactory for cell manufacturing in India. So there are lots of tremendous opportunities, right from large-scale energy storage technologies to distributed energy storage technologies to electric vehicles, and that is going to create tremendous opportunities in the coming decade for in India. So I hope all of you will join us for that and help make India a global leader in this area.
Thank you, Dr. Valawalkar. One important question that I really have here is, Mr. Ranjan pointed out about the adoption issues that we have in the SMEs and MSME. Can our panelists tell us about whether they will need a lot of investments, whether there will be culture change required? What is it that's really required to make sure that these things actually happen?
If I may just jump in, since I made the last comment about energy storage, then I'll hand it over. So again, energy storage is an area where actually by default, everyone thinks that right now these are new technologies, these are costly technologies, so time is going to take for adoption of these technologies. In fact, when we launched IESA 5 years back, most of the people were thinking that why are you doing this? Like, it is going to take 10 years for these technologies to be adopted in developed countries, and maybe India should look at these technologies beyond 2025 when they become commodities. Whereas our approach has been that actually the value proposition for these technologies is much, much clearer in India. Because in India, we haven't yet built the grade which is required for all the requirement. In India, we are right now consuming more than 90 gigawatt of diesel generators are there installed, which are providing power for these SME industries particularly, where the cost of power ends up becoming a very significant issue, as well as the reliability and power quality. Already most of the companies end up using inverters, lead acid batteries, diesel generators as a backup if they have any processes which are continuous processes. So these new technologies are already cost effective. Obviously everyone wants them to be cheaper, and the trajectory at which the cost is coming down is amazing, but it's like a cell phone or a laptop, right? You know that next year you are going to get a laptop which is going to be 30% cheaper, which is going to be double the speed, but can you wait for an entire year for adopting that, or do you start adopting it right now, get more value from the productivity gains, and then invest that productivity gain in doing something more? So we think actually India is going to be a leader in adoption. Already we have seen just in the telecom sector, just with few customers taking lead, India in last 2 years has deployed more than 1.5 gigawatt hour worth of lithium ion batteries. Now these are also getting used for even microgrids. So there are a number of applications where I think India offers actually a better value proposition, and technology adoption could be much, much faster than what most of the people are expecting in India.
No. So, if we look at technology today, it is at no cost. So it's not the money. Anybody who is running a small business can afford a phone which is mail enabled, and these phones cost what, 3,000-4,000 rupees. So it's not money, and it's not even investment. I would go back again. It is the trust. So the person does not have a trust relationship. He fears that maybe the email IDs, the information that he would be putting there is suspect to move out of his domain. So trust can be one of the factors. The second is maybe he is not skilled enough to use the technology, and skilled enough in the sense that one is usage and the do's and don'ts. So probably through and this is where the government comes into picture. This is where the the rest of it is corporate responsibility to ensure that the sector which is a much bigger sector, and the one which has to grow for this nation to grow. The nation just cannot live on the most number of billionaires in the country. The nation would grow when the entire, especially when the lower sector actually grows in quality of life. So this is where both corporate and the government has to come in educating. I won't be able to sort of take it as a cost issue in adapting this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, just to sum it up, those who are adopting, they're adopting well any new technology that comes, but it's also a technology divider. There will be a set of people who would fall behind. And the reasons could be many. It can be that we are not able to reach to them. They are into a remote places. That becomes a constraint. It can be that they are not skilled enough in that particular technology. It is at times, that they are not motivated to do it. And it's our responsibility to be able to show that the productivity that can be there by adopting that technology. So it's a combination of those factors. Cost could be one of them, but I think I agree with him that that's not the prime one.
Yeah, I also agree with the trust and the education. I think that's what small and medium-sized businesses need. Education will bring them to trust the technology. And we need to use and utilize the resources we have. It was said here only 70 or only 30% of them have emails. Why don't use the ones who have emails to educate the ones who don't have in gaining one? And that is our approach too. When we go from country to country, we are hands-on. We educate that small business. That's what we do. That's what you need to do to gain more. And usually when speaking to these people, they need to hear humans speaking to them. They want to see that you are a human such as them. And I have a great example. My parents are farmers. They produce chickens. and they don't know what is artificial intelligence and how that will help them to produce more eggs. But if I'm going to come and tell them that, look, this is the light with a sensor, and anytime when a fox comes and the light turns on, the fox will not enter the chicken to eat another chicken, they will say, that's what it is. So I compare always a small and medium-sized business to my parents. And they need the hands-on, they need someone to stay next to them and show them, this is how it is done. And that's what we need to do with the help of summits like this, with the help of all of these ministers and associations, to utilize ones who know how to do, to utilize them to show the others how else can it be done.
So, I'm in agreement with all these suggestions, absolutely, that it's not a money issue, it's more of a mindset issue. Perhaps it is not for me, or I won't have the wherewithal or ability to take it up. But what she said is also very right. The what we call as the critical mass, if some number of people start using, and if the usage increases over a period in time, then that confidence that, okay, it's not very difficult, it's not rocket science, will definitely come. The other important issue is that there is some responsibility on the technology providers also. What we are seeing, see, as you know, till yesterday we were having the World Congress on IT in Hyderabad. So I was in one of the panel sessions where we were discussing smart cities. And eventually the entire panel came to a consensus that most of the solutions which are being offered in India to the Indian cities today are the ones which have been prepared for Barcelona or Amsterdam or Los Angeles, and you're trying to just kind of ram it down our throats without really understanding from a bottom-up perspective what are the challenges here and what are the technology interventions which are required to really help those challenges. So the same is true of SMEs also. If you really find out what are their major pain points, what do they struggle with, and then if some kind of a very customized suite is developed for them, that okay, these are the 10 options which you may like to do, and then pursue with early adopters. I mean, you require to really get after some of them to become early adopters so that they showcase that it is easy to do that. And we have also figured out that one of the best agency to really push some number of people to adopt are their own associations. As a government, if I stand on their heads, or I'm seen as someone who is at the top and preaching to them that do this, do that, my credibility is very low to do any of these things in any case. So the best vehicle is their own industry associations. Every city, every industrial cluster has an association. So far, their biggest task has only been to petition the government for this favor, that favor. But if you channelize them better, that okay, favors are good, but if you also help in promoting new technologies, etc., you'll be doing a better service to the industry as a whole.
I think that summarizes quite very well. I just have one last, just one very quick comment for everybody. Does this mean employment could be an issue? Just a very quick comment from all of you.
I don't think so. Currently, small and medium-sized businesses employ 40% of Indian employees. And if we are going to give them the technology to do more, as I said, they currently export only at the rate of 3.4. If we are going to give them tools, educate them, help them to export more, these people will employ even more people. And they will train these employees to do more and better. And apparently what happens, look at the US, an educated employee will become an employer one day. And you will start that chain of development. As I said, a person educates another person. It's not sometimes university. You can learn to do business all life, but it's different than actually doing business. So it's not. It's going to create more employment.
I won't try to predict, what will happen in 2050. But today, if we look into it, whether it is IoT, the blockchain, the AI, the amount of work that we require and the profiles that we are looking for, we're not able to get all of those profiles, to be very honest. And so therefore, I don't see in the present time any issues of the employment. In fact, more we can reskill our people from the traditional, conventional field to some of these upcoming fields, then we can build things together for our country.
So I think it is again, there are both sides of the coin. On one side, we think that there are going to be a lot more jobs and employment being generated for this. For example, we are working on an initiative called microgrid initiative for campus and rural opportunities for enabling energy access in remote areas, where we think that it can enable a lot of economic development at remote grassroots level that can generate agro businesses or other activities in those areas. At the same time, some of the established sectors like auto sectors, there is a concern in the auto ancillary sector, which is a very large employer in India, whereby transitioning from the conventional vehicles to electric vehicles, there is going to be a significant change in the technology. Obviously, there are certain hybrid technologies available. So if Indian government has a systematic road plan where the technology transition is not abrupt, but it is a well-planned approach, then most of the jobs could be protected. But obviously, whenever there is a technology disruptions happening, you have to be ready, and typically skill development and continuous education, that has to be a part of the strategy. You cannot just stay with whatever you were doing earlier and just assume that your jobs will be protected. So you have to be on your toes, but I think there are a lot more opportunities being generated. So overall, we think it will create more employment and opportunities.
So I have a little different view on this. So I definitely see certain jobs in danger, especially because machines have capability to produce better results every time than a human being on certain job sets. Having said that, I mean, it's not a danger to the mankind. There would be a opportunity shift. So somebody who is involved into certain jobs, those jobs won't exist, but there are new opportunities then that is going to come out. Other also, when we are actually getting into this technology space, it is going to be a world of abundance. We are going to have, everything much cheaper, more available. So I mean, there is a pros and a cons. Definitely, certain jobs are going to be disturbed, but it's also going to open other opportunities, and it is actually happening for a better world.
I think this was one of the extremely good discussions that we have been having. We had a whole lot of ideas. In fact, what he brought out from the government efforts, along with the corporate, that was a phenomenal, beautiful concept, and that both of them also reflected on that. I think this is what we really need to do to make sure that MSME sector comes into being, into the new technologies, and obviously she also pointed out that obviously their productivity could go up, their cost could go down. That would mean that if we really make a concerted effort on using these technologies, because there is no way of stopping technologies are bound to be there, and the disruptions is already being seen. In fact, large companies are being challenged by the smaller companies, much bigger now, which is what we have been witnessing. So I think there is opportunity rather than the challenge, and if we see it along those lines, it will be really wonderful. I must thank my co-panelists. This has been a great discussion. I know we cut short by a little bit in a way that we are approaching the lunchtime, in fact past lunchtime, but I think I'm really thankful to all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite Mr. Y.R. Varerkar, Executive Director, World Trade Center, Mumbai, to please come up on the stage and kindly felicitate the panelists. I request Mr. Varerkar, Executive Director, World Trade Center, Mumbai, to felicitate Dr. Anil Vaidya. I request Sir to felicitate Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, IAS, Principal Secretary to Government of Telangana, Industries and Commerce Department and Information Technology, Electronics and Communications Department, Telangana. I request Sir to felicitate Mr. Prabhakar Chaudhary, Managing Director, HAL Robotics Private Limited. I request Sir to felicitate Dr. Rahul Valvalkar, President and MD, Customized Energy Solutions India Private Limited, and Executive Director, India Energy Storage Alliance, and Vice Chair, Global Energy Storage Alliance. I request Sir to felicitate Ms. Ali Spinu, Founder, CEO, Export Portal, California. I request Mr. Varerkar, Executive Director, World Trade Center, Mumbai, to kindly felicitate Dr. Aloknath De, Corporate Vice President, Samsung Electronics, South Korea, and Chief Technology Officer, Samsung R&D Institute, India. Thank you, sir. Now, we are going to acknowledge and recognize the companies who have marveled in the field of global value chains. May I request Mr. Jayesh Ranjan to kindly do the honors for the same. I am pleased to invite Mr. Maruti Pawar, Head, Amtronics Techno Private Limited, under the category of manufacturing, to please come up on the stage and receive the Award of Excellence for their work in the field of global value chains. Thank you, sir. I invite Mr. Sanjay Tiwari, Global Head of Sales, Merck Trade Finance, under the category of Finance, to kindly come up on the stage and receive the Award of Excellence from Mr. Jayesh Ranjan. Thank you, sir. Lastly, we would like to present a memento of appreciation to Mr. Madhavrao Bide, founder of Saturday Club, which is a Maharashtrian entrepreneurs organization. Mr. Madhavrao Bide is a civil engineer by education, retired from railways as superintendent engineer. I would like to request Mr. Prashant Kashikar to collect the award on his behalf. I request Mr. Jayesh Ranjan to kindly do the honors. Thank you, sir. I request the panelists of the session to please come up on the stage for a group photograph.